I thought this would be a useful jump-off point before we come to the panel discussion and get into the meat of things. First, in considering what the potential is or what the prospects are for a city, a region, a province, or even a country, we can learn from others. And the powerful engine of any economy is business. And for business to happen, it helps if it is relatively easy to do business rather than difficult. The easier it is to do business, the suggestion is the machine will be better oiled and lubricated. And I want to give you just three jump-off data points here. The Kenyan-born Purdue biochemist Charity Wayua was invited back by the Kenyan head of state to assess the difficulty of doing business in Kenya. That assessment was made in 2014, where Kenya was ranked 136th in the world. 136th in the world in not ease of doing business, difficulty of doing business, I think we could rather say. And over the next 3 years, through her endeavors with a SWAT team in improving business performance, Kenya moves 44 places in 3 years in ease of doing business. That's a remarkable outcome. In 2006, Rwanda ranked 158th. I am reading from my notes. In 2006, Rwanda ranked 158th in the world in ease of doing business. By 2019, Rwanda had moved from 158th. Anyone want to shout out where they think they were? First is best in the world. Rwanda goes from 158th to 29th. It's an extraordinary statistic. In 2010, South Africa ranked 34th. In 2019, South Africa had moved to 84th. So Kenya improves 44 places in 3 years. Rwanda leaps 120 places in 15 odd years. And South Africa goes backwards by 50 places in a decade. So it's been more difficult. Now, the ease of doing business has been challenged as a metric. And we can put big question marks over that framework and its opinions and surveys as opposed to hard stats. But it's difficult to escape the inference that we might be making things more difficult for ourselves rather than easier. So that was my first thought, is we can learn from others in what have they done that we could possibly implement here. Trudi, that's a big flag for you, right? The second is we can learn from evidence. Now, there's enough people who've been tortured through my economics course to know that I'm going to usher in here the six-factor model. Forgive me. But for those of you who've heard this before, the six-factor model is a piece of work we've been involved in over the last 15 years. It studies the performance of 160 countries, 60 years of data, and it finds that the single biggest driver of economic performance is investment. More important than this, there is no country that has achieved elevated, inclusive, transformative growth absent investment. It hasn't been done. And if no one else has been able to do it, why do we think we might be able to do it? So investment is this critical ingredient. And here, two subtexts to the investment story, which is central to our discussion this morning. Mesh, you're going to go and find the money, right? Or maybe Ashor, you've got the money. No, you don't. We'll know in a few weeks' time. Hey? When's our interim budget?
30th October.
Okay. And Ashor says no questions about the interim budget.
Yeah, we're not allowed to talk about it.
Not allowed to talk about it. Tax rates will not be going up or down at the interim budget because nothing happens there to tax rates.
Correct.
You can wait until February for that. Okay, so on the investment side, investment is not just physical investment. Fiber optic cable, highways, harbors. It's also intangible investment. And in South Africa, both of these ingredients have been missing in action for the better part of a decade, tangible and intangible investment. We are missing this critical ingredient. And the question is, how does Gauteng drive this action back? A piece of work that we did a few years back with Robert Matsila when he was at the IDC asked this question: what is the catalyst of investment spending in South Africa? And the suspicion was it might be business confidence, might even be consumer confidence, it could be a stable exchange rate, it could be low interest rates, which makes the cost of capital more attractive or affordable. And to our surprise, maybe even our delight, what we found in this work was that the catalyst for private sector investment in South Africa is public sector investment. If public sector investment is missing in action, the private sector is missing too. So I think that there's a story there. And then my third point, and I'll stop here with setting the scene. My third point is, if we can learn from others, if we can learn from the evidence, we then need to add in a healthy dose of reality. And now enter the grumpy economist. But South Africa, I think, is in a much happier and healthier place today than it was on the 29th of May. That we've wrestled a dragon or a demon of uncertainty that the government of national unity has impressed, and that we have some very early important evidence of gains that have been made. I made the throwaway that we're on day 201, although it shouldn't be lost on us that the uninterrupted load shedding started well before the election, meaning things were already underway for the cynics amongst us. The rand is stronger, and yes, part of that is dollar weakness, but the rand is stronger, all else equal. Inflation is falling. We're in an interest rate cutting cycle. Economists are starting to raise their forecasts for economic growth for South Africa, not nearly enough, but I would venture that we are in a substantially better place. There are, of course, the howevers, and that's where we need to get to the sharp end of the stick. And the howevers are the deeply entrenched inequality, the stubborn, horrifically elevated unemployment. And it's easy to blame the economy as an aggregate for this. So, oh, well, let's fix the economy and everything else comes together. But the economy is an invisible thing, and we can't go out and grab the economy or touch the economy. It's an invisible thing, but the tangible parts of the economy that we can touch are right under our feet, and there are things like called cities and provinces. And Hennie, DHL, is an important sponsor of the Second Cities report, which looks at, the name gives it away, second cities. That report was published earlier this year. So much policy emphasis is what the big cities do, but this province has got a couple of second cities. And so if the province is going to hold, it's not just what is Johannesburg doing, but what are all parts of the machine doing.